Welcome to a conversation with Joe Caruso. Our guest, our host, Joe Caruso. How you doing today, Joe?
Great, Mike. Thanks. Excited about today. This will be fun.
Excellent. And our guest today is David DiFranco.
And there he is. Hi, David.
Hello, Joseph. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. I enjoy our conversations, and I'll let the audience know David's not a client, but he is a great guy. I really enjoy him. He's got a great business. Tell us a little bit about your business, David.
Sure. Thank you. And my gratitude also to the Mike Patch and the team at Effigy for making this possible. So our business is basically, it started back in the 60s, 1965, by my dad. So we're a family business that I inherited along with my brother-in-law. His background is in law. He's an attorney, and I'm a CPA. And we started working for Dad in the 90s, eventually purchased the business in 2008 from Dad. But we operate in a lot of different markets. We do a lot of group stuff. We do theme cruises with Time Life, where it's full ship charters with different music themes. You got like Malt Shop with the Beach Boys, and you got Soul Train Cruise with Gladys Knight and Smokey Robinson and all these acts. We do a large pilgrimage business, which is faith-based travel, mostly to Europe and Israel. Educational tours for student groups. But what really is just exploding right now, it's always been a part of what we do, is the personal vacation planning for individuals, families, couples, because what we do on the group side gives us a lot of inroads, a lot of contacts, and just a lot of unique opportunities that we can parlay to the people we serve who are traveling as couples or as families, and just give them some really unique experiences in the different destinations we serve. But yeah, that's our business in a nutshell. We work in a few different markets. We also do some performance stuff for choirs and orchestras. So we're kind of in a number of different niches, but love every minute of it.
Yeah, I can tell. And in our pre-conversation, we talked about a number of things. As you know, I'm an expert in the mind, and I bring that to leadership. So I work with CEOs and leadership teams all over the world. And so I'll be talking quite a bit about how we think and approach our work. As business is starting to pick up again for travel, what are you seeing from where you're at?
Sure. So the good news is we're not just seeing things open, we're seeing the pace at which they open really accelerate. I've got a number of clients right now, as I'm talking to you. I have a prominent and successful family who is traveling through Croatia. I've got another group who's actually in Italy. So people are traveling. For any of the people who might be listening, if you have any reservations about it, make your travel reservations now, because when people realize you can travel, it's going to get congested. But to your point, Joe, or to your question about, what you do and how it might parlay to what we see. I mean, travel is something. I'm a student of the EO organization, and it's good to make yourself vulnerable. We learn and we exercise our minds and our spirits when we're able to, put ourselves in circumstances like that. And travel does that. Travel does that naturally. But what we do is all we're trying to do is find what's of specific interest to you as an individual, and then match that with the right experience. And we are still a little limited. Not all the destinations are open. You asked, what do we see? But what we see is a lot of pent-up demand. Travel builds culture, and travel builds people. And so, yeah, I think the world is very eager to get moving again.
I think so too. I'm hearing a lot. I'm going to go to September in Italy, as you know.
Yeah.
6 or 7 weeks in the fall. So how do you prepare your folks for what's going to be a real onslaught coming up after they've been down for so long?
When you say folks, you mean my team?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. It's a real balancing act, Joe. To show I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone here who thinks about travel over the last year and a half. It was absolutely decimated. I tell people you could have bombed our building and it wouldn't have been as destructive as how this whole COVID thing was handled and what it's done to the travel industry. But building the team back has been sort of a delicate, thoughtful process because it's very much a chicken and the egg. We see that people are now making reservations for travel, which is great. And we need to have the staff to support that as they onboard. Our organization doesn't really recognize any financial profits or margins until the trip goes, which could be months or even a year from now. So we can't get too far out in front of our skis, so to speak. But we've upstaffed. So in the last month, maybe 5 weeks, we've brought on 9 new people. I'm working with a fabulous HR company who's helping me promote some additional positions. So we're actually growing in terms of staff. We're hiring to build toward that. But what I will tell you is the period behind us, although it was for us just horrible to live through, things happen for reasons. And there's a lot of efficiencies we were able to obtain on the operational side, stuff that clients don't see firsthand, but that allows us to serve them better, allows us to serve them with a better financial return on what we do, things that just help us be more lean and mean that we probably wouldn't have undertaken if the COVID environment didn't force it upon us. So, you try to look for a silver lining in every cloud.
I hear that from a lot of business owners. I'm writing my new book called Quintessential Leadership about levels of awareness. There are some people there's an old joke, I think it's some people have no idea what happened. Some people have, they know something happened, but they don't know what. And some people know what's happening. And what I'm writing about in this is some people are quite unaware. As I travel around the world, I watch people walk past things and see things, and they don't seem to be even aware of what's going on. Some people are aware of what's going on and they know it happened. But then at a higher level, it's called perspicacity. You know what happened and why it happened. I was in a Roman Forum, Caesar's Forum, and a big burly guy comes up to me, Italian, and a slimmer gentleman with glasses. And he's speaking Italian and he flashes a badge to me and he says, "Where are your papers?" And I had just gotten from the Coliseum, took my friend Alex Berklis and Rochelle, his wife, and I was walking through Caesar's Forum and I was telling them this is the spot where they killed Caesar, presented his body. And I was giving a little history lesson because I've studied this for most of my adult life. And so they thought I was a tour guide. And I was in unrecognized tour guide, meaning I'm poaching, right?
Yes.
And so they split us all off immediately. And I just looked at my wife and I nodded my head like this. And I'm a pretty amicable guy. And I looked back at him and said, "Who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here?" Because he just flipped this thing so quickly. And I got a little bit hard to handle, but not in a violent way, just, "No, who are you?" And had I been some kind of a tour guide, I would have known who they were. Of course, I did know.
Sure.
And so it helps to be a little perspicacious when you travel and have somebody, this probably you guys are huge, kind of know what's going down, know the culture. You go to Saudi Arabia and you compliment somebody's shirt, they take it off and give it to you. So you got to be a little careful.
Yeah.
So these are just kind of fun things, I think.
They are fun. And they also, you come back from that with a great story. I'd love to hear later how you got out of the Italian prison, but we'll save that part. But I think that what you're touching on is big, because you're right. When you travel and you have experiences like that, you realize, yeah, this is sometimes how the world works in other destinations, sort of mechanically. Okay, so you need a badge to be a guide or whatever. But more than that, you get a taste for the people. How did that gentleman respond with you? What did it take to get him to warm up to you, to get out of that tight spot? It's kind of fun. We have a group that's going to Jordan. I say group, it's like a family. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 of them. And they're big into the history around the cradle of civilization, all around North Africa, the Near East and Europe. And so they're going through Jordan, and we have them going in this unique experience where they basically go out one afternoon on camelback with an actual group of Bedouins. They spend the night under the stars in these tents. It's all like lantern lit. And they sit there and eat this amazing food, this lavish dinner that they put out for these people. And they listen to folklore, right? They listen to stories from these Bedouins who they pass on through generations going back to the Crusades, all of their history and so forth. It's a fascinating experience. But you don't just show up and do that. You have to have some explanation on what your American sensibilities might be, could offend them here, or how you respond to a particular question here. You want to be careful. And when you come back, you kind of feel a little more streetwise. But you don't feel streetwise on the streets of Detroit. You're feeling streetwise, in the middle of a desert in Jordan. It's just a very enriching experience. And I think that's the kind of thing you're alluding to when you were there with Alex in Rome.
Absolutely. And they did have two polizia standing by, but I just continued on with Alex and I walked out of the forum. And as we left the forum, I saw two more standing there looking at me. Mm-hmm. And I almost turned to Alex and said, let's get a cold water. You have a small bill on you? Got too many big bills. And I think had he reached in his pocket and given me a bill, that I might have ended up.
That might have been bad, unless you were giving the bill to him. Sometimes in Italy,
different. Yep.
€2 fixes a problem.
Just a little bit, yeah. So I talk about the individual mind and the collective mind. Now we know what an individual mind is. Nothing happens in the world without your mind processing it, and your mind processes it through a filter of who you are. So shrubbery can be a real problem or it can be beauty, depending on if you like low maintenance yards or greenery, the collective mind would be your people. You're rebuilding a culture there with these new people you're bringing on. And you want them to know how to think, how to approach, how to communicate. My friend works for Amazon, a hot top trainer for Amazon. And they like to think, they call every day one. It's day one. They talk about narrative, which I read about quite a bit. Everyone has to have a narrative about why you do what you do. And these are cultural things. If you work at Google, they expect you to be creative. And as a leader, some of this stuff you can actually put into words and writing and make it some kind of a handbook that somebody has to read. But quite often, it's just a way that we think and behave the way that somebody might behave differently in a bar than they would in a church. Mm-hmm. It's just, this is the culture, this is behavior that's expected. And as a leader, that's very difficult to do, especially when people are busy all the time. You guys are going to get so busy so fast. So how do you maintain the kind of culture you want to drive?
Well, I think, Joe, that's an amazing question. And it's particularly timely today across not just us. I mean, every business in America right now. As we thought from the pandemic period, and so many people have spent so much time working from home, there's this, you read about how, now everyone's going to work from home, or a larger portion of different businesses work from home. Great. There might be efficiencies there that might allow for companies to retain talent they might not otherwise be able to keep because the flexible schedule accommodates that. But I always contend culture is at risk. My view, now keep in mind, I work in travel, I work with events, we're an event management company. We handle people interacting together as people, and you don't achieve that over a Zoom, right? So when you talk about maintaining, defending, and protecting the culture of an organization, it does require human interaction. There's a reason we invite the people we love over for dinner versus, hey, I'll Zoom you tonight. There's a reason for that. And so, for us, our culture is going to be shifted if we aren't active to this question. because when we atrophied upon the arrival of COVID, we had to let go of some people. Many of them we're getting back. Many of them we won't. And so we're going to be onboarding some new blood, and we welcome that. We're excited to have the talent we can get, but they have to learn who we are, and we have to learn who they are. And so I guess my first answer to your question is you do have to have human interaction, and you also have to have a discipline of defining your culture. One of the big tug of wars I've observed in the business world is when people come up with a mission statement. You know, you want to have a mission statement for your business. Well, does the mission statement end up defining what you really are, or is it kind of defining what you really want to be? You have to be authentic to that, right? And so we spend a lot of time on that. And what we do is, you know, core to our purpose here is to create experiences for people. That's what we're here to do. We're here to create experiences that change people's lives, period. And that is not limited to clients. That can be the person sitting next to you typing away on their laptop. How do we behave as an organization in a way that really keeps the meaning of our purpose, which is to change lives positively, to promote culture with the experiences we create? And that can be a cruise around the world for a client, or that can be a, how's your day? I'd like to hear how I heard your mom was ill. I'd like to talk to you. I'm welcome to talk to you about that. I had recently lost my mother. I'm there for you, man. You know, it's how we interact with the people we work with too. So I'm probably getting a little bit in the weeds here, but culture is important. You have to be active to defend it and define it first. And we intend to as we grow. And we intend to do that in person as much as possible.
I just did some leadership training for the Navy. It's well said, by the way. And I used an example from my last book, The Power of Losing Control. When I pick somebody in the crowd and I say, well, how many people like you? And I, you know, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, pizza delivery guy, to friends, to relatives, to neighbors, to associations, to people you've served in commands with, and just round up a number. And I get numbers everywhere from 50 to one wife of a YPO International, a Young Presidents Organization International CEO, said 5,000. And then I asked the next question, which is, this is a harder question. How many people really know you? And the vast majority of the time, it's 5 or less. And I can see your mind thinking about your numbers as we're doing this, which is good consideration.
Well, and I'm thinking about, how do you know if they know you?
Yes.
They know what we reveal.
Right.
Yeah.
But really, really know you, not your persona, you as a person. They would be able to probably speak at a funeral, at your funeral, and tell a story to people who maybe didn't know you as much. Mm-hmm. And they would know you better because this person's story about you. So now we got 5 or less. And then I turn to the rest of the room and I say, did you hear that person just lie to me? And everybody laughs. And I said, they just told me 200 people like them and only 3 people know them. So I got to suggest 197 people really don't like you. And what you're thinking is, well, they do. We get in touch. We have email, we Zoom, we get together. They do. No, what they like, I'm going to suggest, the key to the relationship is that they like themselves when they're with you. And I think that's the key for customer service. In with your clients, especially, I would imagine, they've got to like themselves when they're with you. Yeah. And your company or your trip or the trip experience. And that requires creating good memories, comfortable, safe moments, a meaning that they understand, because we can't remember anything we don't understand. Very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. This is the way the mind works. And so when we understand we're trying to create memory, happy memories that want to be remembered, and we want somebody to feel bigger than themselves. Excuse me. And that goes for employees too. I want people that work with me to feel like this is important. even though we don't do open heart surgery or anything like that, but we are changing lives, and it's important. I had my chief learning officer was with me when did the Navy. We're just finishing lunch, and the captain wasn't in attendance, but ate lunch with us. Says, Joe, can I talk to you for a minute? So the other officers leave, and I said, yeah. And he said, when I got back from my 3 pumps, my tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, back when it was, or actually Afghanistan, back when there's some real fighting, like Fallujah and so on. Not that it's not real, but it was heavy duty then. And he says, I stationed in Pearl Harbor. It was the darkest time of my life. My friend, my chief learning officer, my friend is right next to me. And he starts to tear up. And so I gave him a hug. You know, he's in fatigue, so I'm giving this guy a hug. And it was just an odd moment, but I just said, it's okay, take your time. What's going on? And he said, Captain Kurgan came in, who was a friend of mine. He said to my hospital room, it was the darkest period of my life. He brought me 2 things. He brought me a natural sleeping aid in your book. He said, in your book changed and possibly saved my life.
Wow, Joe. If that's not reward for what you do, the work you do.
It's big. It's big. And my chief learning officer never heard anybody tell me that before. I've heard it, but she had never heard it. She's crying. And as we walked away and said goodbye to the captain, I said, keep that in mind every time you write a sentence or anything that has to do with how we operate and help people, because you never know.
You never know.
No.
You never know. And sometimes our frameworks prevent us from knowing. Joe, we have a team of people here, many of whom get to be with the guests as they travel. So they see firsthand how the work we do is affecting people's lives. We have other people here that by the nature of the role, they're here in the office. They're not traveling and they're working hard all year long. But they don't necessarily get to see that. And I really appreciate what you just said a moment ago about making sure that people inside our organizations are reminded of how important it is what they do. And it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter their role. They're a part of the pyramid. And so what we do once a year, sometimes more than once a year, but certainly once a year at the end of the year, we have a big event. We call it a retreat, but it's basically somewhere here local where we bring in all our staff, sometimes with spouses, sometimes not. But we bring in some of our clients who, from all the different aspects, could be faith travel, educational travel, performance travel. We bring in a handful of clients just to talk to us about how their experience with us affected their lives.
That's really strong.
And it's really powerful to the people who don't get to see it. It's like they've almost been like, they didn't even understand how important the work is that they do and how this has changed the course of a marriage, changed the course of a person's depression, changed the course of a student that was just opened up a part of the world to them that allows them to take a different path in their academic career. And we actually have a collection. We have a wall of things that we collect. And it's going to sound morbid, but in a way it's beautiful. It's amazing how many people, when you read an obituary, will reference a trip that they've been on that we prepared for them as one of the things that people remember most that they talked about.
Home run.
Yeah, man. If you find yourself close to someone's epitaph, you've done something right. So, you know, it's a little bit. I don't mean to sound self-grandizing, but I think it's important in whatever our careers are. We find out why what we do is important. If you can't find out why it's important, don't do it. But if you can, it's very enriching. Well beyond the financial returns. It's enriching.
Meaning is everything. That's fantastic. I love the retreat story. Great idea. Whoever thunk that up. That was really strong. And I know that we only have a few minutes for questions. So do you mind if we see if there are questions? Okay, great.
I'm ready.
There's been a couple of questions regarding culture in other countries versus culture in the United States. And a few people have asked about what is the mindset of other people in other countries and how they're traveling after the pandemic. So there's a couple of questions asking about those two different topics.
Yeah. Great question. It's a very calico situation right now. By that I mean different parts of the world are in different stages of condition. If you talk about the people who live inside of Europe, they're crossing borders like crazy, and so they look at us. So I'll put it in this perspective: if someone came to us and said, "I want to take a trip to Italy," I would say, "Okay, here's what you need to know about going to Italy. Here's what they're requiring to enter their country." And if you say, "I want to go to France," I'd say, "Okay, you're going to France. You got to get a vaccine. Here's what you need for that." The people inside of Europe, we had some in our office yesterday that some of our suppliers were here, and they're kind of laughing. They're like, it's kind of silly because once you're inside Europe, you can go wherever you want. It's like, it's a strange, fluid and moving thing. But the good news is that with growing frequency, the world is starting to feel safe. You also have to recognize that when we talk about travel, I'm speaking from the perspective of traveling Americans. So when I say the world's opening, it's opening to us. We're very vaccinated. The COVID numbers are just evaporating rapidly here in our country, which is great. It's great news. If I'm coming from maybe India, different answer. So it's very calico. I don't mean to be evasive, but our job is just to make sure that we know exactly what to expect for a particular destination. If someone said, "I want to go to Croatia, I want to go to South Africa, I want to go to Australia," we have to look very closely at the specifics of that destination. And they literally are changing daily. They are changing daily.
The first part of that question too is the cultural. One of the things I've done ever since I started traveling is learn how to say please and thank you and excuse me in every country's language that I go to. And it's amazing how much is forgiven if you do that. But you go over to Paris, I've had so many people tell me that the Parisians don't like Americans. I've never met one that didn't like. You know what they don't like? Yeah, don't you guys have hamburgers here? I want to get a burger. No, that's just impolite. That's like going into an Italian restaurant where the waiter's a professional and saying, "Yeah, I'll have the." No, that's not how you say it. So you always have to think about showing that you're not being a jingoistic, parochial American, but that you're open to the culture by coming towards them a little bit. And that goes a long way. You said we had a couple questions.
There's another question that is specifically for Joe. Joe, how do I prepare my mind for travel compared to pre-COVID to post-COVID?
Get off the internet and learn the facts, because there's so much misinformation out there that people are just readily spreading. That would be A. B, there's different, you want to be, it's like when COVID hit, I told people you can't outsmart it, but you can be smart about it. And so you want to be as informed as you can. You want to be perspicacious around your activities and what you do. And you want to not be paranoid, but just careful. And so when you check your mind, our mind goes into what I call fear fantasies. So it's when you don't know something, all the fear fantasies of what could happen pop into your head. So you could practice saying, chances of that happening are pretty slim. What would I do if it did? But it's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it. So that when you get into a foreign land or a foreign culture, the things you don't know don't frighten you as much. And fear fantasies take over. That would be my, just right off the top of my head, advice.
Thank you. And if you want to ask additional questions, please go to carusoleadership.com and you can enter all your questions and feedback on the website.
David, thanks, Mike. David, fantastic. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate it. Good luck with what the growth rate you guys are going to have. Stay ahead of it. And anything I could ever do, let me know.
Thank you, Joe. It was an honor to be on the program, and just grateful to be here and have the opportunity. So ever forward. Look forward to the future.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Please tune in next time where in a conversation with Joe Caruso, we'll host guest James Reed. James is an attorney counseling business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and C-suite executives, where we get to explore what has happened post-COVID and returning back to work. Thank you all and have a great day.